222. That is how many Russian drones a 1969 cargo plane has shot down. 222 confirmed kills. Not a stealth fighter. Not an advanced air defense battery. Not a $1 million interceptor missile. A 55-year-old twin-engine turboprop transport aircraft, the kind of plane designed to haul freight between regional airports, has become one of the most cost-effective drone killers in the Ukrainian arsenal. And now it has been upgraded again, not with guns this time, with drones of its own. Ukraine has turned the Antonov An-28 into the world's first operational airborne interceptor drone launch platform. It carries underwing hardpoints loaded with killer drones that it deploys in mid-air, at altitude, in direct pursuit of Russian Shaheds, before those Shaheds reach their targets. The Pentagon has not built this. NATO has not fielded this. No military on Earth has operationalized what Ukraine has quietly put into combat service with a converted cargo plane and a 4-person crew of civilian volunteers. Russia is producing 5,000 Shahed-type drones every month and has plans to nearly triple that output. The arithmetic of that production rate, aimed at Ukrainian cities, power stations, water infrastructure, and the supply lines feeding the front, is designed to exhaust Ukraine's expensive air defenses faster than they can be replaced. It is a strategy of economic attrition, and it is built on a single assumption, that Ukraine will eventually run out of ways to stop it. The An-28 is Ukraine's answer to that assumption, and the answer costs $1,000 per kill. In this video, we're going to look at exactly how Russia's drone mass production strategy has created an economic trap designed to bankrupt Ukraine's air defenses, how Ukraine's engineers looked at a plane most militaries would have retired decades ago and saw a revolutionary weapons platform hiding inside it, what the P-1 Sun and Merop's AS-3 interceptor drones can do when launched from altitude rather than from the ground, and why that difference changes the entire kill chain calculation, and what the An-28 program tells us about where the drone war is going, and why Russia's production volume strategy is about to collide with something it never planned for. But first, let us look at the scale of the problem Ukraine is solving. Because without understanding what 5,000 drones a month actually means, the ingenuity of the solution cannot be fully appreciated. 5,000 every month. That is Russia's current Shahed and Garand-type drone production rate, and it is not a ceiling. Russian production facilities are scaling toward 15,000 per month, nearly triple the current output, on a timeline that Ukraine's defenders cannot ignore. Each drone in that monthly wave is aimed at something Ukraine needs to survive: a power substation, a water treatment plant, a railway hub moving ammunition to the front, a hospital, an apartment block where civilians are sleeping. The economics of this campaign are the point of the campaign. Russia's strategic logic is not primarily that each Shahed destroys its target, though many do. The logic is that each Shahed forces Ukraine to make a choice. Intercept it with a surface-to-air missile that costs 10 times as much as the drone, or let it through and absorb the damage. Ukraine runs the missile inventory down. Russia runs the drone factory up. The gap widens with every launch wave. Eventually, the mathematics force Ukraine to start letting things through that it cannot afford to lose. Military strategists call this the economics of exhaustion. The attacker floods the defender with cheap threats faster than the defender can afford to neutralize them. The Soviet Union used artillery shells this way. Russia is using Shaheds this way. A Shahed costs somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 depending on configuration. A Patriot interceptor missile costs over $3 million. A Hawk missile costs hundreds of thousands. Even Ukraine's more economical surface-to-air interceptors carry price tags that dwarf what Russia spends per drone. Fire one interceptor missile per drone, and Russia wins the ledger every time. 15,000 drones a month, 12 months a year. At $50,000 per drone, that is $9 billion of aerial threat per year that Ukraine must neutralize. At $1 million per interceptor, matching that threat one-for-one would cost Ukraine $150 billion annually in air defense munitions alone. The numbers are not just unsustainable. They are designed to be unsustainable. Russia built this campaign specifically because the conventional response to it is economically impossible. Ukraine has understood this from the beginning. It cannot fight this war with conventional air defense economics. It needs a different calculation entirely. It needs to intercept Russian drones at a cost that does not ruin Ukraine in the process. It needs, in other words, Something that costs $1,000 and kills a $50,000 drone. That is precisely what the An-28 now carries. Until now, the platform for those interceptors was the ground. Until now. To understand why Ukraine is the military force capable of building this, you have to understand what Ukraine has been doing to every piece of equipment it possesses for the past 4 years. Ukraine does not retire assets because they are old. It does not discard vehicles because they were not designed for combat. It does not look at a piece of equipment and see only what it was built to do. It looks at what it could be made to do. With the right modifications, the right engineers, the right willingness to try something that the military establishment of any better resourced nation would never attempt. This is not a preference. It is a survival mechanism. Russia has more tanks than Ukraine, more armored vehicles, more missiles, more men. When you are outgunned in every conventional category by a larger and wealthier adversary, resourcefulness is not an optional quality. It is the only quality that keeps you in the fight. Ukraine has spent 4 years turning this constraint into a competitive advantage, producing innovations in drone warfare, electronic countermeasures, maritime attack systems, and now aerial interception that have consistently outpaced what Russia anticipated and what NATO's wealthier militaries have yet to match. The An-28 is the latest expression of that doctrine, and the choice of airframe could not be more deliberately unglamorous. The Antonov An-28 first flew in 1969. It is a small, twin-engine, light turboprop transport aircraft. Close to 200 were built over its production run. Fewer than 20 remain operational today. It is not fast. It was not designed for combat. Most militaries would look at this aircraft and see a liability. An aging utility plane kept alive by maintenance budgets that could be better spent elsewhere. Ukraine's engineers look at it and see a platform with large enough fuel tanks to loiter for hours, a robust enough airframe to carry external hardpoints, a short-field takeoff and landing capability that allows it to operate from improvised airstrips and makeshift runways across the country, and an interior spacious enough to house the crew and equipment needed to conduct sustained anti-drone patrols. They do not see an old cargo plane. They see a weapons system waiting to be built. The first modification is a 6-barreled Gatling-type minigun, a 7.62mm M134 mounted to the cabin door, capable of firing between 3,000 and 6,000 rounds per minute, anywhere from 50 to 100 rounds every single second. This is not a weapon chosen at random. The M134 has a documented track record in aerial applications going back decades, fitted as standard armament in gunship configurations, specifically because it delivers sustained, high-volume fire that overwhelms aerial targets before they can respond. Ukraine mounts it to a turboprop transport aircraft and sends it after Shaheeds. It works. The footage that surfaces from a night combat sortie reveals the proof painted directly on the aircraft. Under the cockpit, 115 silhouettes of Shahed and Garand-type drones, each one a confirmed kill, 2 painted yellow to signify higher totals. By April of 2026, the aircraft and its crew have confirmed 222 kills with the minigun alone. 222 Russian drones that will not reach their targets. Destroyed by a plane designed to haul freight, crewed by civilians who volunteered to fly combat missions in an aircraft with no armor, no defensive systems, and no survivability features against the weapons Russia has since begun arming its drones with. Because Russia is watching, and Russia is adapting. By early 2026, Russia begins equipping its drones with man-portable air defense missiles and air-to-air weapons, arming the hunters to kill the hunters. It fits self-protection systems to its strike drone fleet to increase survivability against the very interception methods that Ukraine is deploying. The An-28's crew, 4 people, mostly civilians, flying a half-century-old turboprop through airspace where Russia's armed drones now actively engage interceptors, is acutely aware that any one of those drones could end their mission permanently. Every flight is a calculated bet. Ukraine does not pull the An-28 back. It upgrades it. This is the moment that elevates the An-28 from an improvised gunship to something that has no precedent in any military's operational inventory. In April of 2026, footage emerges of the aircraft fitted with underwing hardpoints. Not missile rails, drone rails. 2 categories of interceptor drone mounted externally, ready to be released in midair. This is the airborne interceptor drone launch platform. the first of its kind anywhere in the world. The first drone visible on the hardpoints is the P-1 Sun, manufactured by Skyfall. The form factor tells you everything about the engineering philosophy, shaped almost exactly like a bullet, with a modular airframe built on three-dimensional printed components, designed to be cheap to manufacture, easy to replace, and fast enough to catch almost anything Russia can put in the air. The P-1 Sun cruises at 300 kilometers per hour, around 185 miles per hour, but can accelerate to 450 kilometers per hour when pursuit demands it. At 450 kilometers per hour, this interceptor is faster than most of the drones it hunts. It closes distance rapidly, detonates in proximity to its target, and eliminates it before the Shahed reaches whatever Ukraine needs to protect. And it costs $1,000. $1,000. Let that number sit for a moment. A Russian Shahed costs somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 to manufacture and deliver. The P-1 Sun costs $1,000 and kills it. The cost-exchange ratio, 50 to 1 in Ukraine's favor at the most conservative estimate, is not just favorable. It inverts the entire strategic logic of Russia's economics of exhaustion campaign. Russia floods Ukraine with expensive drones to bankrupt its air defense budget. Ukraine responds with interceptors that cost less per kill than a mid-range laptop. Skyfall produces up to 50,000 P-1 Suns per month. 50,000? At $1,000 each, that is $50 million of monthly interceptor capacity, enough to engage every drone in Russia's current monthly production run 3 times over, at a total cost less than what Russia spends building the drones the P-1 Sun destroys. The production math does not just favor Ukraine. It makes Russia's attrition strategy self-defeating. The second drone on the hardpoints is the Merops AS-3 Surveyor, a more capable and more expensive interceptor designed for harder targets. Where the P-1 Sun is optimized for speed and volume against the cheaper end of the Russian drone fleet, the AS-3 brings AI-guided autonomous targeting, a 12.5-mile operational range, and a 2-kilogram explosive warhead that can destroy its target either through direct collision or proximity detonation. The AS-3 can be piloted manually or left entirely to its own onboard intelligence. Sensors tracking, classification algorithms identifying, and AI guidance steering the interceptor to its target without human intervention in the loop. Each AS-3 currently costs $15,000 per unit, with potential to drop to $3,000 at scale. Against Russian strike drones worth multiples of that figure, the cost exchange remains strongly in Ukraine's favor even before production optimization. And the AS-3 is already deployed beyond Ukraine's borders, dispatched to NATO allies on the eastern flank as part of Operation Eastern Sentry, extending the interceptor's operational relevance into the broader European defense architecture. Together, the P-1 Sun and the AS-3 represent 2 layers of a single system, cheap and fast for the numerous and expendable, capable and autonomous for the sophisticated and valuable. And the An-28 is now the platform that deploys both of them from altitude. Here is why that matters more than the individual drone specifications. A ground-launched interceptor drone begins its mission at a severe disadvantage. It launches from the surface. It must climb thousands of feet to reach the altitude where Shaheds operate. Climbing takes time. Against a target moving at 200 to 300 kilometers per hour, every second of climb time is distance the Shahed covers toward its target. By the time a ground-launched interceptor reaches operational altitude, the engagement window may already have compressed to the point where a successful intercept requires the drone to sprint at maximum speed just to close the gap before the target arrives at its destination. The An-28 eliminates the climb entirely. The aircraft patrols at altitude, coordinating with ground-based air traffic control teams who vector it toward areas where Russian drones have been detected. When the camera operator's infrared display, fed from an externally mounted sensor, confirms a target, the crew is already at operational altitude. The gunner with night vision goggles identifies and tracks. The pilot maneuvers to intercept geometry. The P-1 Sun or AS-3 launches from the hardpoint at the moment of maximum positional advantage, close, at altitude, with the target already acquired. From launch to detonation, seconds. Not the minutes it takes a ground-based interceptor to climb. Seconds. The second advantage is loiter time. An interceptor drone, once launched from the ground, is running a countdown. Its battery or fuel is finite. It cannot hover indefinitely waiting for a target that has not yet arrived. Ukraine must launch ground-based interceptors reactively when the enemy is confirmed to be in the area, because launching speculatively means the interceptor runs dry before anything appears. The window between launch and fuel exhaustion is measured in minutes. The An-28 is not on a countdown. A utility aircraft with substantial fuel tanks, it patrols for hours. It can be pre-positioned over critical infrastructure before a drone wave arrives and maintain station through the entire engagement window. It is a persistent airborne sentinel, not a reactive point defense system, but a proactive standing patrol with the ability to engage threats as they enter its coverage zone rather than after they have already been detected close to their targets. Think about what that means over a power station, over a railway hub, over a city. The An-28 is already there when the Shaheds arrive, sensors running, interceptors loaded, crew ready. The Shaheds are detected at maximum range. The interceptors launch at maximum positional advantage. The drones never reach the target. And when the hardpoints are empty, the An-28 returns, reloads, and goes back up. The implications of what Ukraine has built here extend far beyond this one aircraft and this one combination of drones. Light aircraft and helicopters already account for approximately 12% of all Russian drone kills across Ukraine's entire air defense network. That figure, 1 in 8 Russian drones destroyed is destroyed by a small aircraft, not by a ground-based system, is remarkable for a category of platform that was not designed for this role and is not equipped with purpose-built interceptor systems on most of those aircraft. 12% of Ukraine's total drone kills coming from improvised platforms before the An-28's hardpoint modification was even operational. Now consider what happens when those platforms are systematically upgraded with the same underwing interceptor capability the An-28 now carries. Transport helicopters, trainer aircraft. Every light aviation asset Ukraine operates that can be modified with hardpoints and loaded with P-1 Suns. Ukraine is already developing mothership drone concepts, larger unmanned platforms that carry and deploy smaller drones in contested airspace. The An-28 is the manned version of that concept, and the proof of its effectiveness in combat creates the template for the entire category. If 12% of kills come from light aircraft before this capability is operational, and those aircraft are now being systematically armed with interceptors that carry a 50-to-1 cost advantage over their targets, the percentage of kills attributable to airborne platforms is going to rise significantly. The layered air defense network that Ukraine has been building, ground-based radar, surface-to-air missiles, mobile anti-drone units, AI-powered turrets, electronic warfare systems, and now airborne interceptor platforms, gains another layer that is simultaneously the cheapest to operate and the most positionally advantageous for the kill chain. Russia's production volume strategy was designed to overwhelm a static, expensive, finite defense. It was designed for a Ukraine that had no choice but to respond to every drone with a costly interceptor, gradually exhausting the missile inventory until the drones started getting through in numbers that could not be managed. Russia invested in Shahed factories. Russia trained production engineers. Russia signed supply agreements for the components. Russia built its drone strategy for a version of Ukraine that would eventually run out of affordable ways to respond. It is instead fighting a Ukraine that has made cheapness itself into a weapon. That produces $50,000, $1,000 interceptors every month. That flies a 55-year-old cargo plane modified with underwing drone rails over its most critical infrastructure and kills Shaheds worth 50 times the cost of the weapon that destroys them. That has civilian volunteers willing to take that aircraft into airspace where Russia's own armed drones are now hunting for exactly this kind of platform. Russia built its aerial attrition campaign for an opponent defined by what it lacked. It is fighting one defined by what it invents. 222 kills from a plane that first flew before the moon landing. And it just got deadlier. If you found value in this, subscribe so you do not miss what comes next.